Welcome back to Legal Threads, where we pull apart the fabric of key legal cases and show how the law is stitched together. Today we're looking at Commonwealth v Barone, a Pennsylvania Superior Court decision from 1977 that tackles one of the toughest questions in criminal law: when does a tragic accident become a crime? The story begins with Ms. Barone, who was driving to work one morning. She came to a stop sign at a busy intersection and waited a couple of minutes for a chance to cross. She then pulled out but either failed to notice an approaching motorcycle or misjudged its speed. The motorcycle slammed into her car, and the rider was killed. Witnesses said she didn't honk or brake before the collision. Prosecutors charged her with homicide by vehicle under Pennsylvania Statute Section 3732. The trial court threw out the case on a demurrer, saying the evidence wasn't strong enough, and the Commonwealth appealed. Barone also cross-appealed, claiming the statute itself was unconstitutional. So the case raised three key issues. First, does the statute create strict liability, meaning any traffic violation that causes death is automatically a crime, or does it require proof of negligence? Second, was the evidence here strong enough to show negligence? And third, if it is strict liability, would that even be constitutional? The court started with the rule that criminal law almost always requires some form of mens rea, or guilty mind, unless the legislature makes it absolutely clear they want strict liability. Pennsylvania courts especially dislike strict liability when prison time and the stigma of a crime like homicide are on the line. The majority, led by President Judge Ciccone, read the statute carefully and said, the word homicide has always implied some degree of fault. Looking at legislative history, the statute wasn't meant to criminalize every tiny traffic mistake but to cover cases more serious than ordinary negligence, though less than manslaughter. So they held that a conviction requires at least culpable negligence, a gross deviation from reasonable care. Applying that to Barone, the court found she did stop at the sign, she did wait, and while she may have misjudged the oncoming motorcycle, that amounted to simple negligence at most, not gross negligence. So the evidence was insufficient. There were separate opinions, though. Judge Spaeth concurred, but for different reasons. He thought the statute actually did create strict liability, but that would make it unconstitutional under Pennsylvania due process because of the stigma of being branded a homicide offender. He believed the statute should be struck down entirely. On the other hand, Judge Weand dissented. He thought the statute was clear and deliberate. The legislature wanted strict liability, responding to rising traffic deaths and the difficulty of proving recklessness in manslaughter cases. In his view, holding drivers criminally responsible whenever a rule of the road violation caused death was reasonable and constitutional. The ultimate holding was that the law requires proof of culpable negligence, not strict liability, and the Commonwealth's evidence here fell short. The judgment, the demurrer was affirmed and Ms. Barone was discharged. The significance of this case runs deep. Barone sets the standard in Pennsylvania that vehicular homicide is not triggered by every traffic slip-up. There must be negligence so severe it amounts to a gross deviation from reasonable care. It highlights the constant tension between public safety, legislative power, and constitutional protections against branding ordinary drivers as criminals when accidents happen. And that's today's thread. Commonwealth v. Barone reminds us that even in tragic cases, the law insists on fault before labeling someone a criminal. Thanks for listening to Legal Threads. Remember to like and subscribe for more cases where we unravel the fabric of the law.